Hi, everyone. Should we get started? All right. The first thing on the agenda is next week, I think we are going to be out. Should we cancel the meeting for next week? Yes. All right. I'm just going to take note. Were you going to say something?
No. Just agree.
Okay. I'm going to note that.
Can I really quickly ask the notes? I don't see the link to the notes in the calendar invite. Can someone send me the link? And I guess the more general question is where is the link to that available?
Yes, let me send you a link now. I need to look into how do we add to the meeting invite. Yes, we will fix it. Do you have a calendar invite? You did subscribe, right?
Yeah. I just subscribed to the calendar.
I see the link on the calendar invite. If you scroll down a little, there's the Google Doc link.
Oh, interesting. I'm looking on the Apple Calendar, like the native app. So okay, then I'll figure it out on my side.
Okay, thank you so much, Jenny. Sounds like it's not a concern. All right, I think we should move to our first topic. Lina, you are here, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Do you want to take us quickly through the enhancement proposal? Then maybe we'll
sure.
open up for questions. Thank you.
Okay, let me present.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Okay. Can you see my screen, right?
Yeah, it's coming up. Yeah.
So in the kgateways repo, I have an enhancement proposal open that I think a couple of people read through. And this is to add the old Glue AI APIs to kgateway. So we're open sourcing a series of our, almost our entire AI APIs and bringing them to kgateway. So I'm just going to walk through what that entails, and then if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I don't think I have the attendees open, so I can't see people raising their hands. So feel free to interrupt me. This is very informal. Again, in the enhancement proposals, the pattern I was following was what Tim and Damian did earlier. So there is an issue open that runs through all of the tasks that need to get done in order to add support. But this enhancement proposal is more motivating why we want this and the goals and the different features that this will add. So again, these APIs are enabling users to route to LLM traffic and apply advanced policies like prompt enrichment, prompt guard, streaming, user invoked function calling. And all of this is happening on the egress. So you create a kgateway, right? That kgateway, when you create upstreams and HTTP routes, can route to self-hosted LLM providers in the cluster or external LLM providers. And we have a list of supported LLM providers later in the doc. So there's no net new resources. Everything is going to live on the existing upstream resource and existing route policy resource. And the corresponding changes are going to be in those plugins. And in addition to an XProc server that we will add as well. So the goals here are, again, to implement those AI specific APIs based on, again, prior art that Glue AI Gateway had, to open source them in kgateway and provide all that functionality that I mentioned, like prompt enrichment, guarding, streaming, etc. This feature should be enabled and disabled via Helm. Again, the plugins, there's not going to be any net new CRs or plugins. This is all going to be in the existing route policy and upstream resources. And again, we'll bring some end-to-end tests to validate the feature and initial documentation. This, I think, is an important thing to call out in the non-goals. So there is an existing separate enhancement proposal for the Gateway API inference extensions that Danian's working on. So this is like the GIE is an open source project that's part of a work group serving, right? And it's sponsored by SIG Network, so it's part of like the Kubernetes community. We don't own those APIs. It's like a community effort, and it's specifically providing a scheduling algorithm and reference extension implementation to support routing to multiplex LLM services. So it's not provider specific. It's not specific to the egress use case like policies that we have. Maybe in the future we can replace our upstream with this extension, but for now, these are two separate efforts and solving two slightly different use cases. Again, like the egress policies versus the community effort to support those multiplex LLM service routing features. This proposal also doesn't have any observability features in it. That will be a separate proposal because currently kgateway doesn't have any observability support. So I think that should be tackled separately. And then there are some advanced features that we're just not going to port over initially, like RAG, semantic caching, rate limiting, JOT. Those are out of scope of this enhancement proposal. It's mostly like again, prompt guarding, enrichment, handling the different providers, things like that. Are there any questions so far? All right. Well, we should fix the link. That's a good note. So an example flow that I think is useful to visualize is like I mentioned, this is the egress gateway, right? So all of this is inside of our gateway. These are all the different envoy filters. Again, you can imagine if you had rate limiting or other things here, those might live either in the rate limit filter or like you could, attach RAG here, but the basic flow is we have our xproc filter that is going to call out to our AI extensions xproc server. This is going to handle all of the JSON manipulation, any caching that we might want to do in the future, all the enrichment, like the token counting and whatnot. And then set filter state will get the token count from the dynamic metadata and set it to the rate limit filter state. So if you're bringing your own rate limiter, you could potentially use that. The rate limiter is responsible for determining whether to rate limit incoming requests. The router filter is the end of the traditional filter chain. So this is what kicks off the upstream filter chain. And then the transformation filter, which isn't really that relevant, but it is adding the model to the request body based on the host metadata that we have. So this is like the model failover part. And then that goes out to the model, and then everything comes back. So the AI extensions is also where like the enrichment and prompt guarding is happening. So we're using like Presidio for prompt guarding in some configurations. So all of the net new logic that's on the route policy is mostly happening here in the xproc server. All right, and then again, this walks through the APIs. I'm just going to quickly go through because I'm cognizant of time. I realize this is a pretty big doc. So in the two resources I mentioned were the upstream. So in the upstream, this is where you define how you're accessing the API key. So we support a variety of modes, the pass-through mode, inline API key mode, or automatic secret integration with Kubernetes secrets. So you define your upstream specific to the provider, and then here you define how the API token will be provided. And we have a couple examples of the different providers. And then the route policies where all of the extra features are living. So when you define your HTTP route, you specify a specific path, right? You select your backend ref, which is the upstream we defined earlier. And then the route policy will have the different features that we care about. So in this case, like prompt enrichment's defined here. There's also examples of prompt guarding. So you can do it again on the request or the response. So again, these are like examples of prompt guards that Presidio would check. We also do moderation support. So there's only a couple endpoints that I think we only support OpenAI initially, but you can define a moderation endpoint as part of your prompt guard. And then finally, you can also define a prompt guard webhook. So those are kind of the prompt guard features. Streaming is also supported, and for most providers, you don't have to change anything. For other providers like Gemini and Vertex AI, the path that you're calling actually determines like if it's a streaming request or a non-streaming request. So there is an additional field on the route policy that will let the route know if it's a streaming route versus a non-streaming route. And then finally, user invoked function calling. So this again doesn't have any policy changes, but just highlights how you can use the like kgateway AI functionality to do function calling. And later I have an example with building agents. So you can specify your tools in the request, and then the response will like return back that function call with an ID and parameters to invoke the function with. So that will work out of the box with the proposed APIs. And then finally, this will also work with libraries to build tools and agents such as LangChain. So the way you can do this is just by replacing the base URL with the AI gateway URL, and this will work as normal with if you're using the chat OpenAI library from LangChain. So yeah, to recap, these are all the supported LM providers that we'll have initially. So Anthropic, Azure, Gemini, Mistral, OpenAI, and Vertex AI. But we also support self-hosted models. So if you have a self-hosted model that fits any of these specs, for example, if you're self-hosting like a DeepSeek model, you can still use these APIs by providing a custom host. So in this example, like you provide, you have a model running locally in your cluster, you can provide the custom host and port, and you still be able to route to the model and still apply the same prompt guarding or prompt enrichment policies that you could earlier. And then just some housekeeping. Again, like I mentioned, we need a Helm flag to be able to enable and disable this feature. We don't always want it to be running, right? And then because if it's not, if it like enabling it means we have to deploy the Xproc server alongside the gateway, right? So that's like kind of one of the reasons we need a Helm flag here. The plugins, we won't need any net new plugins, but we'll have to change the upstream and route policy plugin to be able to handle the AI specific APIs. I mentioned we'll need a Xproc server, probably written in Python, to support all of these features like the prompt guarding and the enrichment, and then prompt response and request parsing. And then reporting. We'll need to update all of our statuses to support, upstreams referencing Kubernetes secrets and other, things that can happen when, like the route policy has misconfigurations, right? And then finally, we'll have a series of unit tests that test the plugin logic, a series of Python tests to test the Xproc as a typo, server's parsing logic, and end-to-end tests to test all the features. So yeah, that's all I had. I think one open question is like looking into what statuses are currently supported on the upstream and route policy resources to understand what we can add. But other than that, a lot of this, again, we've had feedback on from users of the Glue AI gateway. So it's a pretty well-tested API that we can port over here and open source.
When you say add to the Helm chart, is that the deployer gateway params Helm chart?
So I think we'll probably only need one Xproc per gateway. Yeah, I guess that's like.
You prepare gateway, you mean like deployed alongside the proxy.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I think it makes sense that it'd be there. As for your question about the statuses,
Yeah.
there is that there isn't any. We just talked about it the other day. That's something we need to address probably before KubeCon.
Makes sense. Cool.
Just
Okay.
to add something real quick, is there anything needed on the control plane for that Helm flag? Or is it purely just a matter of configuration to deploy the xproc alongside the proxy?
I think we need to add it in the gateway params.
Right.
Or even anything other than that.
Because all of the other AI related configuration comes from just, using the standard route policy in upstream.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, okay. So then it would be used in the end result of the AI flag. Like, even though the flag is there, right, it's really going to be, like you've all said, it's going to end up on the gateway parameters, which is then going to change, that will configure the internal gateway chart to have the xproc sidecar.
Yep.
Okay.
So question, Nina, for the self-host option, can let's say, can I run DeepSeek locally and also I point to DeepSeek external service?
Yep.
Can I configure it in a way that if my local is down and then only use the external one when my local is not available? Is that an option too with this proposal?
So the current proposal, I think I didn't include the multi-pool section, but yes, like you could have this upstream is specifically for the local one. You can define the custom host to point to like API deepseek.com without the port, and it does work. The failover part, I think we should handle in a separate proposal, because I think initially we just want like base functionality with policies, and then we can visit like the failover functionality.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, the other question is, as a user, how would I think through whether I use this AI service? I use what Danny is working on, which is the load balancer, AI-based routing.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think going back to the goals, like if you have a specific provider in mind that's on the supported list, or like you're self-hosting a provider that fits the spec of like DeepSeek, right? Then and you specifically want like the advanced policies, so like prompt enrichment, like prompt guard, things like that, then I think this makes sense for you. If you're just testing out multiple LLM provider failover, I think the Gateway API extension, like out of the box, supports that failover. Like that's already in the proposal, right? So I would look into that instead. This initial proposal, like I mentioned, doesn't have any of the failover functionality. So this is like mostly the policies getting introduced and the upstream provider support. So like egress, like kgateway acting as an egress gateway, going to either a self-hosted or external LM provider, and you want to apply policies to it.
Okay, yeah, thanks a lot for the clarification. I think there are some questions also on the chat, Nina. Ian, you had a question, and Tim, thanks for answering my question too.
Yeah, I was just wondering where we expect the xproc code will live. Like, is that going to be in kgateway, or do we want to have an external repo for extensions or whatever?
That was my proposal. If we don't want to in kgateway, I'm open to having it in a separate repo. Like it's easier to maintain if it's in the same repo, because we don't have to have separate release cycles. But if we want to keep the kgateway repo clear of extensions and like no Python code allowed, that's fine.
How much does CI takes? That's
How much what?
how much time does it take in CI? I think if it doesn't take a lot of time, I don't care that much personally.
Yeah, CI time, but also I think like if it's really just Python dependencies, you know, I what I don't want is we just went through this exercise of cleaning up the module. You know, I don't want to consider the xproc code as part of the core kgateway module, or at least you know, I would like to see a little bit more fleshed out of what that would mean if that was the case. But if it's just a Python server and, you know, it doesn't add a whole bunch of CI time, I can be, you know, I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to keeping it in the same repo. My initial thought is like having a separate repo would be much cleaner, but yeah.
The only downs, like having a separate repo, I think we still want the end-to-end tests to be written in Python, because at the end of the day, like users writing like the line chain example, will be using Python. So I don't think we'll be able to get away from not having any Python code in kgateway altogether. But and the xproc code is like relatively small, but it can expand in the future, right? If we add additional functionality there. So even if we keep it in a separate repo for like extensions, right, we still probably will at some point need to introduce some dependencies in the end-to-end tests. Cool. Well, any other questions or?
I guess sort of related to that, how much functionality would you get if you did not deploy that XDauth proxy? Is that like basically going to be the whole thing?
Yeah, basically the whole thing. Because all of the, like, I mean, rate limiting wouldn't work, right? Because the token counting is happening in the extensions. The like prompt guarding, like handling the streaming request and token counts, enrichment there. Yeah, I think there's very little that like it would be basically like all the other functionality that doesn't depend on any of the AI extensions would work, but I think even the routing really wouldn't work.
I mean, if we're adding fields to route policy and the code that implements them happens to be in Python, I think it still makes sense that it'll live in the same repo as the API.
Yeah.
Like the other code that implements our policies.
No, I guess that's a fair point. Yeah, because it would be kind of strange, like if we had a field, but if you set something to it, but then didn't have the extension, nothing would happen. I mean, that's why we'd like warn and like, you know, have a status that like, you know, AI extension, like server not found, but yeah.
By the way, what's the purpose of the vector database? Is that for the caching?
That semantic caching, yeah. This again, like in the future, like another nice thing you can do with the xproc server eventually is add semantic caching, and then get a similarity score between the request going in, check the vector DB, and send a response back. I think this is more like in the self-hosted model example where your provider isn't giving you any caching or anything. You can like do that with the kgateway maybe eventually.
Okay, but that's not as part of your proposal because I don't remember reading.
Yeah, so that's and like Glue AI gateway does support that, but the initial proposal that we have is like a limited set of features, but again, like in the future they can be extended by the community or like use cases. So
okay, got it. Thank you. I'm not seeing any questions in the chat or hands. Thank you so much, Nina, for presenting this enhancement proposal. I think the next question on the agenda is what's the process for the enhancement proposal? Do we require folks to present to the community? I think it's actually pretty nice to present to the community. So I want to open up the floor, see if anybody have strong opinion on that.
Well, I guess I can go first. But I just I think that's like I mean it's nice having a recorded you know walkthrough, but all the information's on the proposal, right? So I think it's also nice just having people be able to read it and leave feedback. So I don't think it's necessarily like a requirement to have to propose. Like I think if it's like a large enough feature going in, it's worth it. But I don't think every single proposal should strictly require it. But in like I do think there's some kind of threshold of review that has to happen. Whether that be like a, you know, like 2 reviews from people like reviewing the document, like specific sections that we want filled out. Because currently we don't really have a template or anything that exists for the proposals.
Yeah.
Is there anyone interested in volunteer create a template? It might be really useful. Jenny, were you going to say something? Sorry.
No, I was just saying, yeah, that I think the creating a template should be an action item.
Okay, yeah.
Just so people know what to put in the design docs.
Maybe just if someone could take ownership of creating the issue that tracks this requirement to add a template.
I think Daniel, like the structure that you had, like I basically followed it, and I think it has a lot of the things we want. So like a existing GitHub issue linked, the like background section, like open questions, testing, reporting. But yeah, I maybe I can start one, and if you want to give feedback on it, because again, like mine was basically based on yours.
Yeah. So if you want to just tag me on the PR, if you want to create the issue against the PR as well, it just gives some context for people that maybe weren't here for the call. And I was considering including a template in the PR that I had for my enhancement proposal, but I didn't want to conflate the two issues, so I decided against it. But yeah, I think it's a good start, and we can always iterate it as time goes on.
Awesome. Thank you so much for both of your volunteers. So I'm going to jot down the action item Nina and Daniel you guys just said in the notes, and the conclusion from what I'm hearing is present is nice, but we don't strictly require. I would say it's only strictly require if there's a lot of contention.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
All right, I'll just summarize that.
But then merging enhancement proposals, and is there like a designated person that has to approve them, or just 2 approvals from people that have merge permissions, or like how long do we want them up? Like, is there like guidance on when an enhancement proposal is good to merge in?
Maybe we see how long it takes for the first few, and then sort of decide if there's any reasonable timing from that.
Well, like Tim's, I think has been up for a couple of weeks, right? And Daniel's as well. And I think both of them are in pretty good shapes. I mean, if we want a new template, we might have to rework them a little, but like I guess maybe like Daniel's is a good example. Like, is there anything holding up Daniel's from being merged right now, other than a lack of template?
That's a great question. You know, I think Daniel, your enhancement proposal has been out for a few weeks. So I don't remember people have an objection to it. So I guess maybe we can define number of reviewer, I guess it would be nice to dictate at least, I think it's at least one, right? And then as far as the timeline, I think it makes sense to time box it because it's unfair if we don't have providing any feedback and still it's been out there for very long. Do you think a few weeks, like 3 to 4 weeks is a good timeline for enhancement proposal, and then have at least one reviewer approve it, one approver approve it?
Yeah, I don't even think it should be time bound. I think it should be based on, you know, a minimum threshold of
Yeah.
approvals from maintainers. So we
Yeah.
start off
Plus
with
one for no time bound.
Sorry.
I could
Go ahead.
go for it. Ian.
I was just gonna say, I agree with Denyon. I don't think like putting a time bound on it is probably helpful.
Okay. And
It
Tim-
might be good over time to do it if things are sitting for a while.
Yeah.
But for now, it doesn't seem strictly necessary.
So how many reviews, approvals do you think we need? Do we need to treat it higher than regular PR? By the way, do we have 2 approval on the regular PR?
It's just a single approval right now.
Okay. So should we do single approval on the design doc as well? Or do you guys feel strongly we need to do multiple approval?
I mean, I guess other option could be a vote.
I think that's too heavy.
Yeah,
Pretty
I-
heavy, but
my vote would be let's start simple and just do if we're saying
Yeah.
it's single approval to merge code, then let's just do the same. I mean, initially I was thinking, okay, 2 approvals, but my vote would be let's just start simple, and then if we get to a point where we're like, oh wow, you know, this we need additional gates, then we can readdress it. But that would just be my vote.
Yeah, I agree. The last time we ran a vote scares me, so I'd rather not have that overhead. So single approval, I think I would say maybe have it out at least a week, just because I don't want to be like, okay, Daniel, you put it out and Nina reviewed it and nobody else have time to weigh in. Would that be reasonable?
Then if that's the case, I would actually lean towards multiple approvals as opposed to having it time bound. I mean, the only reason I say that is maybe we get into a situation where it's like, okay, we, you know, the project needs to move fast, and then we're just creating this artificial delay. So unless, you know, others disagree, I would just say let's require 2 or 3 votes then, or 2 or 3 approvals.
Okay, that's fair. Nina, what's your thoughts?
No, I agree with that. I think having a week is just an arbitrary time
Okay.
box that we're adding like, buffer time, which requiring extra reviews also slows it down, right? But
Yeah.
it like slowing it down intentionally to get consensus versus having an arbitrary 1 week like, you know, review period doesn't actually mean people are going to look at it, right?
Yeah, the only reason I'm proposing that, which I don't think we have this problem, is sometimes in Istio, we have people upset when a design proposal merged too fast because they haven't had chance, so they may be out of vacation. So, but I think we can go with this until it become a problem. So how about 2 approvals and no need to be time bound? And if any of these become a problem, we'll adjust it.
do we want the approvers to be maintainers from the kgateway repo, or like, I guess we could do eligible voters as the approvers for it, which would be somewhat smaller group.
I think I would just do 2 maintainers from the repo
Same.
because those are the people who are going to maintain and merge in the code for the enhancement proposal too.
Yeah, I mean, eligible voters are also maintainers by definition.
Yeah,
All
except
maintainers, so it's just an idea. We don't have to.
Yeah, okay. So let's just do maintainers from the key gateway repo. All right. Perfect. I think we are a little bit over time, but Art and Nathan, you guys have, oh, Nathan, I guess we already covered your topic. Yes, we probably should cancel. Art, maybe we can quickly, actually, we have a reviewer role. What do you guys feel? Are these topics urgent? Should we do it now? Or?
I think we can wait till the next one since we're over time already.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Art, is your topic urgent?
No, I don't think my topic's urgent. I just wanted to bring up a couple different doc things, but I can also just kind of throw some things out in the Slack channel if anything, comes up that I need immediate help with. So
that sounds good. Yeah, because we're 9 minutes over. I feel bad. So thank you everyone for joining. Good discussion. Thank you, Nina, for your presentation. Bye, everyone.
thanks. Bye.
Yeah.